The Reliability Hero podcast is proudly brought to you by the mainstream community. We'll have conversations with maintenance and reliability practitioners just like you. People who literally make stuff work on an industrial scale and also keep economies moving. So why hero? Because asset management tamely describes the risky and important work you do, where a single misstep can cost millions of dollars and lives. And because few things excite you more than making equipment and machines do more than they were ever designed to do. Faster, safer, longer, and more efficiently. I'm Andrew Daddo. Welcome to the Reliability Hero podcast. It's a pleasure to welcome Cliff Williams to Reliability Hero. Now, Cliff's an award-winning author of the best-selling maintenance novel, People, a Reliability Success Story. He's worked through numerous industries, steel, paper, packaging, with the big ones like Coca-Cola and Wrigley's and Kraft. The last little while has been with Erco, where he was the Corporate Mainetenance Manager. Now, Erco is a global company. He's now a teacher and a consultant. Cliff, it's a big intro. Does that sound right?
Just a slight exaggeration, I think. But yeah, no, it sounds right, Andrew. And for my sins, that kind of describes where I've been. Yes, indeed. And now it's on a downward slope, having lots of fun getting up the slope, through my career. And it's been enjoyable, really, really enjoyable. Often say that it's not my work, it's my hobby. I enjoy it so much.
Oh, well, haven't you been lucky?
Yes, indeed.
Cliff, let's start at the beginning. And it's interesting that you use the phrase you're on the downward slide now as opposed to the on your way up. When it began, when your career began, say 40 years ago, how different were things?
Oh, extremely different. Nothing even similar. Equipment in those days, and when I first started, they were built kind of to last. There was no real emphasis on maintenance and reliability, because what would happen would be that I started off in the steel industry, and pretty much every piece of equipment, pumps, tanks, things like that in the steel industry would have an inline spare. It was, okay, we're going to run this one, and when it blows apart, we'll start the next one. And then we'll take that into the shop, rebuild it, fix it, whatever it may be, and that'll go into the stores, and we'll put it in the next time. But that was it. That was really what maintenance was about until in the early, we're talking 50 years ago. In the early 70s, I was very, very lucky enough to get involved in one of the first computerized maintenance management systems that existed. And I was with British Steel. And at the time, the computer was the size of a truck. There were, an army of clerks filling in punch cards and everything like that. Yeah. But it was an attempt to start maintenance and reliability. And that was, how it started to change, where the whole focus really was to understand where the costs were in maintenance and reliability. And that was what started it all. And that's what really got me interested, because prior to that, I'd been a tradesman and not a very good tradesman. In fact, my apprentice master had said that, there's no way this guy is going to make a living in the trades. Well, 50 years later, I'm sorry, Mr. White, but you were wrong.
Be nice to find him and tell him, eh? Hey,
I don't think he's around.
Well, not yet. Not yet. You'll get your chance. It better.
When we go, if we go the same place.
Just with regards to the pre-early 70s, when you had the inline system of a replacement, that worked quite well.
It worked quite well, but again, what the focus had become was cost. So yes, it worked well, but you were pretty much having to buy a new pump every time a pump failed. And
Okay.
because there was no regular maintenance and no regular inspections and no regular touch-ups, and maybe there were greasing and some oiling and things like that, but the life cycle of the assets of the equipment wasn't as great, and the failures were catastrophic. They weren't like, okay, we'll make an adjustment. Look, in today's we say, okay, if we make this little adjustment now, we can go for another year and we're all okay. It wasn't the case. It was, oops, it's blown up. And then, of course, because there's no warning, there was the downtime. Because, okay, that's just failed. So if we didn't have a buffer, say, in a tank that contained the liquid that would allow us to keep running, then it was the cost was the big driver. As I mentioned, that really was the driver. It wasn't to have maintenance and reliability. It was to have lower costs, which would be given to you by good maintenance and reliability. And that's what we found.
With maintenance and reliability, there's no, if you have the older blokes who are looking backwards going, mate, back in my day, things were better and different. This is not the case in this field.
No, absolutely not. And it was what's changed is the mindset. We see organizations now are really focused on maintenance and reliability, but they're not really focused on maintenance and reliability. They're focused on cost. So that hasn't changed, but the focus has changed, and it started in those days. But yeah, it's not definitely, the good old days we used to, no, the good old days we just used to pray.
Yeah, you got the old bloke who stands there and says, back in my day, holding up three fingers and says, things were different, but they were great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's your thumb, Barry? Where's your thumb? Okay.
And that's another good point, Andrew. It's in respect to safety. When things are blowing up, you're okay if there's no one around. But if there's somebody walking by and all of a sudden the pump blows apart, and then you're getting the liquids all flowing everywhere. So in those days, safety was really not a top priority. Environmental wasn't really a top priority. I have problems with my hearing that I've had since my 20s. Because I worked in a steel industry that was very, very loud. And it was only sort of frail people had hearing protection. Real men didn't have hearing protection. That was, no, we don't need those muff thing, whatever they call. Yeah. And so I'm probably deaf.
Yeah. Right. Okay. With regards to cost, Cliff, how lean can things be run with regards to safety? And the second part to this is, how difficult can it be to talk to management about how you can't run things too lean?
Yeah. What we're looking to find is that sweet spot, which is really dependent not on the tasks and not on what gets done, but really on the culture of the organization. Because when you're looking to see how lean you can run this, you will have some organizations that say, yes, we don't need this, yes, we don't need that, we're going to do the other, we're going to do all these things. And the culture then is, okay, we've gone so lean that we've impacted safety. Now, if you're looking at the whole reliability program and reliability-centered maintenance, RCM, which has been around a long time, this talks about it. The first question it asks is there a safety impact? And then you're going to develop the task based on, if it has a safety impact, what are you going to do? And eventually you get to the default action. Maybe you need to redesign things. So how lean can you get? That depends on really on the culture of the organization. And sometimes it's too lean. And other times it's done just right. But it have to have that analysis to understand that, okay, the failures that we're likely to have and the problems we're likely to have are going to impact the safety or the environment. And then you base everything around that. They may be very similar to what you do, even if they don't. But what certainly changes is that, if you get to the point of saying, okay, there's nothing I can do to predict this. There's nothing I can do to, if I change it out on a periodic basis, I can prevent it. There's nothing I can do there. At the end of the safety line of questioning, it becomes, okay, we really need to redesign this, because we've identified that there is a possible safety impact, and it's not acceptable. So I don't know if I answered both parts.
No, you did. It was one of the things that really brought me up short at one of the mainstream conferences, when someone said you've got to prepare for the things that you can't imagine you'll ever prepare for, which I found quite confusing, really, because I thought, how can you even prepare for something that you literally don't know is coming, and yet that's one of the things that's most important in this field.
Right, and that comes back to again the parts of reliability-centered maintenance, or just good maintenance, is things like hidden failures, where you have all of these wonderful warning devices that you don't know if they're failed or they're not failed. So when they say, okay, think about how you're going to prepare for those things that you don't know you'd prepare for, that's the type of thing we're talking about. Is, okay, if I have a fire alarm, how do I know that fire alarm is going to go off when I get a fire? And there have been some major incidents and lives lost because those safety devices weren't tested, and that's the preparing for what you don't know might happen. So you actually challenge it, you try it, you say, okay, is it going to happen? Because you don't know when it's going to happen, so you're going to try and say and challenge those things and say, okay, is this going to happen? Right, great. Now we've got some confidence in that our protective devices are going to protect us. It's going to tell us that it's too hot, too high pressure, whatever it may be, too high level. So yeah, it's part of that whole reliability process.
Okay, and for you intellectually, is that one of the, and maybe spiritually as well, is that one of the things that lights you up at a day-to-day work level to just go, well, where are the things that I can actually make the biggest difference?
Yeah. Yes, but I'm hesitant because throughout my career, the place there I can make the biggest difference is with the people. That really becomes. I've never been the sharpest tool in the shed, as they say, but I've always made sure that I've got some pretty sharp tools there, and they are the ones. So how can I help them? How can I get them to do all of those things? And yep, when you see the results and those things that might have happened, didn't happen, or they're mitigated, or they're kind of anticipated, then you feel good for the people, because they are the ones that will have gone and done it, not me. I'm just the guy that perhaps sits in the office somewhere and sends out the reports and asks stupid questions. But that's where I've always thought that's where I make my biggest difference, and so that's where I've always gone.
Okay, so you really interesting culture and people, the two most important things, and again, then it literally does come down to people management as opposed to product management. In your mind, right, and your experience, and steel, paper, packaging, food. What are the key touchstones or touch points there that have worked best for you?
Relationships. There's no hesitance. Relationships. It's understanding the people. They're people first. My approach always has been that they weren't born millwrights or fitters or electricians or pipe fitters or whatever. They were born human beings. So let's find out about those human beings. Let's build that relationship where we understand each other. Try and be as open as I can. and realize that you're not always going to like everyone in the workforce. There are going to be people who are going to have different sort of perspectives, and the challenge for that becomes is then trying to figure out why they're having these different perspectives and what you can do to sort of build that relationship. But it all comes back to building those relationships. Stupid little things like understanding the kids' names. What are the kids involved in? Are they involved in, soccer or cricket and things like that? And, okay. And if you have a Christmas party, you make sure you go and shake the hands of the wife and sort of say, or the significant other, sorry. And thank them for lending that person to us. And I know it sounds hokey, but you would not believe the sort of rewards you get out of things like that, where people then feel valued. They feel that okay, what they have has value to themselves, and of course I'm doing it from a selfish point of view because they're going to give us value to the organization.
Yeah, I did have a funny sort of picture of you there in my head, Cliff, walking into the Christmas party going, yo, 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 what up, G?
Yeah. It's Hi, I'm Santa Claus. No, usually I make a fool of myself dancing first, and then they kind of say, "Who's that idiot?" Oh, that's my boss. Okay, and but no. That's another thing that I haven't really thought about, but not being afraid to laugh at yourself and make yourself look vulnerable. I did it by not by accident, just it's my natural way that I am. But again, it allows people to feel connected with you, and that is for me what has been essential. As I said, never the smartest tool in the shed. The apprentice master said I'd never make it, in the world of the trades, and yet 50 years later, finishing it off as the corporate guy for a nice big chemical company. So something has worked.
Yeah. Okay. Clearly something's worked. Who taught you, Cliff? Did you have a mentor or a series of mentors who guided you into actually understanding the right way to talk to people, and given that all people are, can be quite different?
This is going to sound arrogant, but no.
Okay.
There have been a couple of people in my life who kind of honed what I had pretty much throughout my life. When I was a kid, I was the kind of guy that led the gang. I was the kind of guy that said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And, it came natural. And when, you get into these sort of really philosophical questions of whether leadership is born, nature or nurture or whatever, for me, it was 100% nature. It was, that's what I was born with. And always go back to my parents and just thank them for that, because they always gave me the ability to feel good about myself. And to feel that I had something to offer, even though we weren't a well-off family. We were a very working class family in Wales, but they gave me that confidence, and so I that's what I used throughout my life. And then I suddenly found that it actually works, but it came naturally. I probably sounds very arrogant, but I'd be lying if I didn't say otherwise.
Yeah, but it's interesting because what it feels like I'm hearing as well is that that mentorship actually came from home, so there was most definitely something. There was a moral compass that was set very early, clearly by your parents, and that's the one that was, and they set the right one. So I just wonder with businesses who have people coming through who are maybe not, who are just off the compass in that corporate sense, what's your advice for how to get them on track and doing the leadership style that would work best?
Yeah. And again, comes back to the culture of the organization. So you need those leaders at the top. Because if you have leaders at the top who are command and control, they're the ones that kind of do what I say. It's going to be almost impossible for you to, as these people come through, to say to them, well, you need to be engaging, you need to be empowering, you need to be, and by the way, do it tomorrow, or else. And it's so it kind of starts at the top, and having giving people the authority to do these things, and that sometimes is the sticking point for organizations, is that sometimes at the top they don't want to give up that authority to the people at the next level. But if you don't delegate, you don't pass that authority down, it won't reach these people coming through. Because what you want to do is, as they come through these things, what they see is what they're going to do. So you want the norm to be engaging, empowering, encouraging, and all of those things, so that even if they don't have, these skills, when they're starting out and they're doing their job, they're going to say, well, what's he doing? Okay, I'm going to do that. What's he doing? Going to that. Also, you want to have something formalized so that you can say, okay, this is our system. This is the way we do things. Again, the way we do things, culture, all these things keep coming back to that same thing. And in my opinion, is the culture is really driven by top leadership, not just sort of what they say, but how they measure people. So, if the top leadership are measuring the engagement and everything else, that it's going to flow down. If top leadership are just measuring numbers and not understanding why the numbers are what they are and how they could be changed, then again, you're not going to get it. So back to culture.
Okay. So almost in a sense, a bit of corporate parenting as they, come through their teens. But, obviously their teens is not their teens. Did you learn also did you learn more by success or failure, do you think, Cliff?
I'd say 50-50.
Okay.
I didn't have that many failures. Again, it probably sounds arrogant, but I didn't have that many failures, but ones that I did were pretty big. Okay. And
do you want to share any of that? Just one of those?
Yeah, the reality is that I joined an organization whose reputation was to be one that was empowering, engaging, and all of these things. And I really, for years, I thought, I'd love to work for those. I'd really love to work for those. So I finally got a job with them. They approached me and I said, yes, I'd love to take that job. Not realizing this was a private company, not realizing that the owner of the company had passed away. And the people that had taken over from this person were not of the same ilk. So I'm there with my, sort of flower power hippie, sort of Hawaiian shirt. Let's get things together. Let's sing Kumbaya and let's all have great fun. Yeah. And the bosses are kind of looking, well, who let him in? Where did he come from? What happened here? They saw the results that I'd had in other organizations. So they said, yeah, okay, this guy must know what he's doing. But it was in organizations where that type of leadership and that type of, guidance worked. It didn't work. And it was an interesting story where they eventually sent somebody down from headquarters they sent them to all the different plants. And they came to the plant and they were kind of consultant psychologists. And so they did the different colors. If you're red, you're a director. If you're a blue, if you're a yellow, you're a whatever. So anyway,
you're north, south, east, west, all that.
Yeah. So they did that whole exercise, and then they came down and sort of gave all the results to the plant and everything like that. And the plant manager kind of said, or plant director, his title was, said, "There's something strange." He said, "We seem to have one person here who's an inspirer, a motivator. I can't think who that is." So anyway, at the end of the day, they lay out a big circle on the floor with all the different colors in the segments. And so they say, okay, those that are, blue, go stand behind it. 1 or 2 goes there. And then they say, okay, those that are yellow, and I remember I was yellow, go and stand there. So I went and stood there, yellow by myself, these 2 people by the red. And then they said, well, those of you that are the blue, the directors, the command and control, go stand by your segment. So 13 of them are fighting to get onto the segment, and they can't get on there because there's no room. And they got these, and what's worse is it's diametrically opposite to where I am in the yellow segment. And it's like, okay, no wonder I can't sleep at night. No wonder I'm not being successful. And no wonder. And so I went to the consultant afterwards, and I said, what was that all about? And she said, well, I've never seen that. She said, I've got to be honest with you, I've never seen it. She said, but I believe you. So I said, what do I do about it? She said, I believe you have 2 things that you can do. One is quit. She said, the second is go insane, because you will never live in this environment. You are so alien to this environment. And I think it's about the only job I've ever left. I just did something to get out of there. Other jobs I've left to get a better role or something that's more interesting. This one, I just had to get out of there because it was affecting me. It was affecting me sort of mentally, physically, everything. And I had no idea until they did this analysis, and then it became obvious. Yeah, okay, I am not a square peg in a lot of round holes. Yeah.
Right. I thought you were going to say someone who's brown because they're a turd, but no. Anyway, what do you what's the brown square? What do you think about that management process of
Well, it's the same as everything. It's the same as everything, Andrew. If you do it right, it's okay. But there was just no thought process to this. The whole idea was that it would be a balanced group. And yet that was another thing that the consultant said to me. She said, I don't know who the hell has been doing your hiring process, but you need to fire them as well. Because they don't know what they're doing.
You've moved from being a practitioner to a teacher and a consultant. So when you go into organisations, because businesses always have these groups, they come in and they do their colours or the north, south, east, west, or the 360 reviews, and they're all very normal now. What's your way of going into a business and trying to make it work better?
Okay. The first thing that we really do is that we ask the question, what's important to you? What is important to you? What are your pain points?
Yeah.
What are your measurements? What we find is when you start asking those questions, there are huge disconnects. So that when you go in to try and help the organizations and get them to move forward, you work at making those connects. So that, okay, one of my favorite examples was there was an organization had some real problems between the planning and scheduling group and everyone else. Everyone seemed to hate the planning and scheduling group. And it turns out that, they had a compliance measure, and the compliance measure was, not being hit. So everybody had a hard time with planning and scheduling. So I was doing the initial course was with the leadership group. So we had all of the leaders in the room. And so I asked the question and said, okay, well, planning and scheduling, we've heard it many times during the past 2 or 3 days, this compliance schedule, nobody's meeting it. So tell me why. And they would say, well, we'd have this all planned, and we'd go to the stores, and the parts wouldn't be there. Oh, we'd have it all planned, and then the operations group would say, no, this is more important. Or then we say we have it all planned, and then we'd go there, and they say, well, no, we can't shut down that piece of equipment. We need it. And, and sometimes we go there and they just tell us to bugger off. We wouldn't even get a reason for it, it'd just be bugger off. So I said, okay, so again, put your hand up. Who's responsible for what's in the stores? And of course, the procurement and the stores people put their hands up. And I said, who's responsible for operations? Yeah. They put their hands up. And, we go through that, and get 4 or 5 groups to put their hands up. And I said to them, then why the hell are you measuring the planning and scheduling group on this? They've got no control over it. But that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get planning and scheduling to solve your problems. You're the ones that are causing them. You are the ones that are causing these things not to work, and you want planning and scheduling to fix it for you. It doesn't make sense. And that's what we see very often is when you dig deeper and have those discussions, you can see that there are disconnects. There are metrics that are not driving what you want them to drive. And that's another key point is that organizations do a very haphazard job of developing good metrics and good measurements. They may have been good 15 years ago, and this is what we see is, okay, yeah, well, we've done our KPIs. Yeah, we've done this, we've done that. Yeah. Has the market changed? Yeah. Has competition done anything? Yeah. Technology done anything? Yeah. But we still got the same KPIs because that's what we've always had, and that's great. So that's really the way that we go in and try and get the organizations to move forward. It's removing the roadblocks, and it's not always easy because when I asked the first group about who was responsible for the stores, they put their hands up, and you could see the others shrinking in the chairs because they knew that the next question was going to mean that they'd have to put their hands up, and they could see them sort of trying to hide or go to the washroom or something like that. And it was, but yeah. But again, it's trying to get them to build relationships.
Yeah. So when you're a practitioner and you had consultancy groups come in and go through and find the pain points with companies you were working with, would your feeling be one of, this is great, they're coming in and they're going to fix things, or would it be that what I guess would be a more natural thing is, oh, here we go. The blokes who haven't got a consultants. And how do you change that mindset?
I had a funny mindset. Back in the early 90s, way back in the early 90s, I was involved with an organization that was really trying to emulate the Japanese way of managing and self-regulating teams and all of those things. And I just loved that idea. It was like, that's what I've been trying to do. And so what happened was that they'd come in and they'd have a topic and they'd teach it. And at the end of it, I'd say, oh, so that's what it's called. I had no idea it was called that. But that's what I've been doing for that, and I'd give the example of what I'd been doing. And they say, yeah, that's it, situational management. Well, no, it's not situational management. It's managing Dave the way I need to manage Dave, managing Rick the way I needed to manage Rick, and managing Barry the way I need to manage Barry. That was not situational management. That was people management. And there were lots of things. But when they then provided tools that would help, explain and allow me to go back to the group in general. Then I sort of say, okay, this is how we do it. It takes away that sort of that nature thing and becomes a little bit of a nurture thing, because now you can say, okay, situational management, this is what it's all about. Sort of self-regulation, this is what it's all about. Empowerment, this is what it's all about. Delegation, and so I in all honesty, I looked forward to them. It was okay. This is great, and yeah, that I think back then in the early 90s when we did that, that was the thing that prompted me to say, okay, what I'm doing makes sense. I'd been doing it totally ad hoc, not really knowing if there was, it just felt natural to me to do these things. When somebody comes back and says there's a science behind it and we do all these things, that's when I kind of went berserk. And I wanted to be the team, and I wanted to be the everything, and the relationships and the culture and all this stuff started. Before then, I probably didn't talk that way because I didn't understand that's what I was doing.
Right. So the rules, so your intrinsic understanding of the way things work is actually the way things work. And it gets down to people management and understanding that Wayne is different to Jennifer, is different to Claudia, is different to Barry.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Is there something that you've seen and thought, geez, I wish I'd created that?
Yeah. There was an organization back in the pulp and paper industry, and they had really gone overboard with this self-regulating everything team. It was incredible. We visited the plants, and we visited one plant, and there's a 55-year-old man sitting there telling me that he's grown as a person since he'd started working there. And how it had been, and it's like, of course I made the point of kicking all the managers out first because I didn't want the influence of the managers, and it was just the tradespeople. And the way they talked about it and the way they did things, and when you walked around that plant, the mills, you could see the pride. It was there. It was wow. I think about, go back to our mill and, oh, shoot, we're going to be up to your knees in water or whatever it is. And this place is spotless. You could have lunch out there, it's great. And it's like, and it was really, really inspiring. And it was, wow, this is great. And then it didn't get ruined, but it kind of got put in its right perspective, because when we went out to lunch then with the senior leadership team, and and of course I'm so pumped by this now. I'm okay, you got to tell me, why do you decide to do this self-regulating stuff? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? And they said, well, we didn't really. We said, well, what do you mean you didn't really? He said, no, we started off by figuring out how much money we wanted to make, what profits we needed to make this sustainable. And then we looked at what would be probably the best ways of doing it. And this is what we came up with. It was a non-union mill, and they had all greenfield, everything when they started. And they said, but you know what? If we'd have been wrong and we didn't make the profits that we wanted, we'd have thrown that out the window. We were not here. There's no altruistic sort of, feelings here. It was all about the money. And we made the money, and so we continue to do it. And it was amazing because they did stuff, pretty much every weekend. There were projects for the local community, and they would all go. It was amazing. It really was an amazing example of what could happen. But as far as senior management was concerned, it was about the money. It was not really what it was. And then they got the right people in the right places.
It's really interesting, Cliff. Yeah. Okay. Is there, look, just to finish, I'm mindful of your time. Is there a mantra that you either have lived by or do live by? Something like, you run the plant, you don't let the plant run you. Is there something that you have in the back of your mind or tattooed across your left forearm?
Yeah. It's back to what I mentioned a long time ago. It seems like a long time ago. It's not really. Sorry, Andrew, I didn't mean that to make as if it sounds as if we've been here all night. But no, it's all back to, they're people first. That really is
Yeah.
the mantra that I've had. They're people first. Treat them as people first. Work with them as people first, and then worry about the skills and all these other things that come along. Because without the people, the equipment, anybody can buy the same equipment. You can buy the same paper mill. You can buy the same chemical plant. You can buy. What's going to make a difference is the people. And so, I know it may sound hokey, but those that I've worked with, I'm sure I have confidence that they would back up what I'm saying is the way that I behaved. It's all about, I still, I recently retired from Erco, but still have discussions with the maintenance managers. We'll get on a team meeting because they're my friends. I don't want to. I don't want to lose touch with them. And it was friends, and the common interest we had was making the plant better.
Yeah, and it's one thing to say people, but it's knowing the people, and I think that was the nice point. Not just dancing at the Christmas party, dancing badly at the Christmas party.
No, dancing bad. No, oh no, it's I did stupid things. We hit some records in the paper mill, and it was really amazing what we had done with zero downtime. And so I went to, it was a privately owned paper company. And so I went to the owner of the company and sort of said, will you give me a couple of $1,000? And he said, what for? He said, I want to send, a gift voucher to all of the tradespeople. I said, look how much money they've made with zero downtime, like trillions of dollars. It's like, give me a couple of $1,000, shouldn't it? Oh, okay, they give me. So what I did then was I actually sent them to the significant others. And, and that was like, wow, again, the rewards you got on that were incredible. And it didn't, again, some failures is it didn't work out quite exactly the way it should, because when people started realizing that they'd got these vouchers, they talked about it. And then two of the fitters realized that they hadn't picked up the mail the day before. So they said, well, we haven't picked up the mail. No, we didn't pick it up. So anyway, they went and picked up the mail, and then they went round to the restaurant and got drunk. So their significant others weren't too pleased about that. So yeah, you can make mistakes.
The best laid plans. Cliff Williams, what a pleasure to chat. If anyone wants more, I mean, they can find your consultancy, but the other one is the novel. It's not a novel. It's a book. People, a reliability success story. Yeah, I'd love the novel of that, and I can see that.
No,
okay.
Yeah, it's a story. It's not a technical book at all. It's the story of my life in those paper mills. The impact of my wife and all of these things. So it's not the reason we called it a novel, because it is not a technical book. It's nothing like that. There are no sort of graphs. There are nothing. It's all about how people lived.
No pictures.
No pictures. Couldn't get pictures. Only ones of me dancing silly in the Christmas party. But that's.
Oh, no, that's all up here, Cliff. That's all.
Yeah.
Hey, what a real pleasure to chat. And I know you were meant to be part of Mainstream this year, and that didn't quite work out. So we'll shoot again, eh?
Yeah, no, I definitely aiming for next year. It was it was tough to say I couldn't come, but with Mr. COVID and everything flying around it the way it was when I needed to make that commitment, I couldn't. But now things seem to be getting better. But yes, coming down and meeting all my friends at Mainstream and Eventful. Again, I don't consider them anything other than friends. That wasn't a Freudian slip. They're my friends, and really like to see my friends again.
Okay. Good on you, Cliff. Thanks very much for your time.
Okay. Thanks, Andrew. Take care.